warming your cold heart. It's like intermittent rewards variable with our lighting. It's like gambling. When it hits, it really hits for me and I get so much dopamine, and then the rest of the time you're like, just chasing the dragon.
And we do it seemingly the same every time.
How's everyone doing? Last time we spoke to you was our Olympic video, and I feel like we should just mention up front, we were just, before starting this video, looking up the claims that breakdancer Reagan, the Australian woman, like scammed her way into the Olympics. According to Snopes, that's not true. That's just a rumor that cropped up, that her and her husband like started the board. And according to Snopes, she was judged by like 9 independent judges on the Australian committee and got in fair and square.
Was she part of the group that pressed to get breaking brought to the Olympics?
I'm not sure.
Is there a little like nepotism?
Because she
was
was
the right word.
Yeah. She was a teacher. Apparently it was a fair process and they were all judged the same way. That's just what Snopes said, and all the Australian bodies have said. I do find it...
peddling misinformation? Did we
peddle? We probably did, and it does scare me a little bit because she's made videos talking about how she's been getting like death threats. And like people, when a hate-based movement reaches critical mass, it really does get scary, and I do feel bad for her because she probably has really gone through it since the Olympics.
Yeah, just like...
And the ease with which we'll just believe that a woman is evil.
Yeah.
Scares me. But I do think it's good to just like generally be skeptical when everyone's just like piling on someone online. Because like we just like believed that ray gun stuff without... I didn't question it because it's like, how else would she have got to the Olympics? It just made sense.
It's like the people who go on American Idol and are just really bad singers, and it's like, why did no one in your life intervene and be like, hey, I know you love to do this thing, but maybe the Olympics isn't the place to do it. And I just feel like that could have really helped.
It is
friend in that.
It's possible that she was better in her audition than
I don't think
she didn't do the kangaroo.
I think she was always doing the kangaroo.
We can't know, but all I'll say is that it's not a crime to be bad at dancing.
It's not. And I don't want to say, well, what were you thinking you were asking for by going and performing?
Because no one's asking for death threats, and I don't like that energy. I'm like, we can be like, she's not good enough for the Olympics. We don't have to then extend it to like she's this evil villain.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh God, having the ire of the whole world, terrifying. I can barely endure our comment section.
No, our comment section is generally really nice. Sure. I really mean that. Like, we really have like lovely people in our comment section, and I feel like when you guys call us out for stuff if we make a mistake, it feels like very safe and like thoughtful and coming from a really well-intentioned good faith place, which I appreciate. So thank you guys.
Evolution was never ready for this. And
I've been reckoning with this maybe not being the best jobs for our personalities. Support us on Patreon if you want to inspire us to keep going. What were you just talking about before we turned the camera on about how shame is a chronic dysregulator?
Are we ready for our first TikTok? We're doing a TikTok digest.
Yeah, we're doing a little TikToks we've enjoyed recently.
This is by Dana Dawsey.
Realize that the ultimate nervous system dysregulator is chronic internalized shame, and here's why. Shame is different than all other emotional experiences because it sits at the level of your identity. For an example of that, guilt would be I did something bad, and shame is I am bad. There is inherently something wrong and bad with me that translates to I am not worthy of having access to safety, love, and connection, and therefore I do not have access to belonging, I do not have access to survival, and my tribe will abandon me. This is where it's really important to match your understanding of evolution with emotions. Because when you are somebody that was exposed to chronic shame throughout your childhood, so if you had parents that would say things to you like, why are you always like this? Why do you do that? Why do you say those things? And they over-personalized whatever it was that you were doing, you will internalize this chronic shame and then start to relate to yourself through shame, which almost inevitably ends up with you living in a state of functional freeze that can be undone through some...
Do I have ADHD or do I just have a lot of functional freeze a lot of the time? I truly don't know.
Same.
My parents, no shame to my parents, they've grown as well. But my mum growing up would always be like, why can't you be like, and then would like name another child. And I'm like, because their parents are like happy and they're home as healthy. But yeah, I mean, you grew up Mormon. You must have had a lot of shame as a kid.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like more covert.
Yeah.
Like passive aggressive.
Yeah, because I feel like, because you were like a good Mormon kid, I feel like the shame is more just like be constantly on guard, but because you knew the rules and you could keep them, maybe that helped.
Yeah, I've been untangling, as some of you who have watched us consistently know. I've struggled with anxiety and depression since childhood.
Same.
And maybe ADHD.
I'm OCD, ADHD.
But now, as I've been over the summer experiencing some like really intense anxiety and being like, where did this come from? And realizing like, oh, scrupulosity was the form that this anxiety was taking when I was in religion, and I just interfaced with it or understood it differently. But leaving the religion undid a lot of the scrupulosity, but the base anxiety is still there, and the shame that was instilled in me from a very young age is still with me, even though I'm not like worried that I'm going to get struck down for having a cup of tea or something. Yeah. There's still like a very deep shame and a very like aggressive anxiety that I have to deal with.
It's almost like you can potentially uninstall some of the software, but not the hardware. Is that how computers work?
Sure.
I don't know, but just that
Never really been
concept,
inside one.
You can leave. I mean, when I first left Mormonism, I was still very much in us versus them thinking, just in a different way. So suddenly I was like, anyone religious, anyone peddling any of these ideas is so evil, and like I couldn't engage in any way that ever like was helpful. I would just like get into fights with believers all the time. Mm-hmm. And it takes time to unravel all of that. And then it's like hard. I imagine, I didn't grow up religious, so I imagine it's a whole weird complex thing where you're unraveling all the stuff from your religious worldview, but then your family of origin has like its own flavors of stuff too.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's like just my family of origin stuff as a kid, and obviously like societal stuff. But I'm like, did anyone, let us know in the comment section, but I'm like, are there people out there who just felt good about themselves in childhood and felt like they were good enough and worthy of love and safety, and they have to exist? Sometimes I meet people and I'm like, I get the sense that you did,
like,
yeah. I know a few people, yeah, where you're like, you don't seem like you. We all go through stuff as a kid, but it doesn't seem like you ever went through like chronic shame. I love how much shame is entering the conversation these days, because it really is such a, it's just so unhelpful. I like that she did the distinction between guilt and shame.
I really felt that that's what I've been entangling, is being like, okay, like whole life, leaving religion, feeling like I'm going through like what people normally go through in their teenagehood, like as someone in their, like starting as a 26-year-old, like trying to figure out what real human relationships are about, how the world works, how to operate in it, and just feeling like really behind the curve in that way. And looking back at the mistakes I've made and people that I've hurt. And I think at times I get like that overwhelming shame of like, this means I'm unworthy, that like she said, all my community is going to turn against me.
I should just hide and isolate. That's when I get
die. And yeah, it's true. It's like debilitating. So part of my thing has been like going back into like somatic reprogramming. Been doing some hypnosis and stuff, just like...
I want to get more into that.
Yeah.
Hypnosis specifically. Yoga's been helping me a lot. Just like feeling like you're moving through your feelings. I like meditation too, but I do think it's, at least at this period in my life, more helpful for me to have the movement alongside it, because so much of anxiety is like moving stagnant energy.
Yeah.
Something I've kind of been struggling with, or just I suppose thinking about the last week, is like, I know that shame is unhelpful. I know that it's like just like a negative force. Like shame, chronic shame doesn't make you a better person. It just makes you want to like hide and shrink, and that's not the same as, like, I feel like when I truly love myself, I feel more and I think research backs this up. Like, I feel more empowered to change. I feel more capable of changing. The paradox is like, when you don't feel like you have to change, you're better able to change. But something I really struggle with is like, I'm trying to be less of like a people pleaser, or have shame kind of like drive the way I interact. But then I also have to reckon with like, sometimes I feel like when I'm completely relaxed in myself and like not masking in any way, people don't like me, or like I'm not like people think I don't like them, or people think that I feel disdain that I don't feel. Like, I've noticed it in like internet comments in various places. I've noticed it like throughout my whole life. When I first moved to America for college, I mean, when you first met me, you thought I just like didn't like you, or was like kind of rude. As I've got older, I've become like more self-aware, which has made me more like, I try hard. Like in college, when you met me, I wasn't as aware of that phenomenon. I was still like growing in awareness. So like that was me being like more like myself. But then it's like, everyone's like, just be yourself, but then what do you do if being yourself like makes you unpalatable?
Because like, people also have these like either unconscious or conscious expectations for women, for people, especially like in the Mormon background that we came from, where like superficial niceness is so important, and that like the pleasantness of like, I'm just going to give you my full undivided attention because you're a child of God and I need you to sign up for home teaching.
It feels like a triple whammy because I have like by just natural way that I am, and then like British culture is different from American culture, but then Mormon culture is like another layer of like people pleasing presentation in women.
Yeah,
You're just so doomed.
You committed the 3 cardinal sins. You were a woman, British, and blonde.
Yeah.
So everyone assumes you're talking down to them.
I'm not trying to make this episode all about me and like a therapy session for me, but I really am struggling with that lately because I like saw comments on like a Mormon Stories panel I did where it was like, Sam seems like condescending, or I like see people, I've heard people say before that I'm intimidating is like, that can mean a lot of things. Like I get intimidated by people all the time, and it doesn't necessarily mean like I think anything negative about them. Like I do, for whatever reason, to certain people present as like disdainful or condescending when like I'm socially anxious, or like it's like me being nervous is reading as like I think I'm better than others, which I'm like, I don't really know what to do with it, because I already feel like over the last 10 years of living in America, I like really have like worked on trying to present as like more friendly in a way that people like read as friend, you know what I mean, to smile a bit bigger or be a bit brighter in my presentation, or like help like I try and go the extra mile to like communicate that I like the person I usually like the person I'm talking to. Do you know what I mean? It like takes kind of a lot to like actively not like someone that you're talking to. Anyway, I just don't know what to do about it, because I'm like, I want to be myself. I want to just like stop caring what people think, but then I also don't want people to think I don't like them. So like, what's the solution? It's like it feels like masking is genuinely necessary for my survival. But then it's like, even with the masking, I'm still running into that same... It's like never enough anyway. People will still think it. Like, if you guys have any advice, if you can relate, if you have advice, it just feels like such a double bind of...
It sucks. This is something I've been seeing because I also have been a chronic people pleaser to the point of not being able to express how I actually feel, and then just preferring to like shut down and avoid because like I can't bring myself to be like, hey, this is making me uncomfortable, or hey, I'm not really, you know, whatever it is. All the TikToks I've been getting and, you know, the word from the wise is like, there's so many people in this world, and like a huge percentage of the ones you come across are just like not going to get you, and they're not going to even like you or see the part of you that you see or want to be seen. And you just have to be okay with that. And that sucks because I want everyone to like me.
Okay, but Tanner is one of the most likable people I've ever met, and I hardly meet anyone. Like I never hear anyone say anything negative about you. I feel like you genuinely are in person and on the internet, but I think especially so in person, because when you have one-on-one conversations with people, you are just like there, you're with them. You are like, you have the opposite thing that I have, where like when people talk to you, you could be talking to a complete stranger and they'll feel so like safe, so seen, so held, so heard. And like, I would love to give that to people. Like I will often like feel like so much love in my heart, but it's like, I can't like, first of all, I am like quite easily dysregulated in new social situations, and like you can only like show up as best you can.
You know, so we just have to unshame it.
I've kind of come to the conclusion that it's like, you just kind of try your best to be yourself and mask. Like, just kind of find whatever balance works. I honestly don't know. But yeah, there's always going to be a percentage of people that read you totally wrong, slightly wrong, neutral, and just are indifferent to you. That's kind of the sweet spot in my opinion.
I'd love for people to have no idea who I am.
There's going to be people that really like resonate with you and like you, and then there's even going to be people who like maybe like you too much and put you on a pedestal and like project positive traits onto you that maybe you don't. Like the whole spectrum is going to happen. Especially, I feel like, well, with like creators on the internet, everyone is sort of projecting onto them. Like nobody truly knows, even the people that share a lot about their personal lives. You can never truly like know who someone is through a camera when they're like obviously controlling what they put out and stuff. But obviously like we do develop a false sense that we do. But every creator is like, everyone is projecting onto everyone all the time, and that is just like a fact of life, and there's nothing we can do about it. You just have to be okay with being disliked. But then it's hard when you feel like it could genuinely threaten your survival, that you're unlikable. I know like part of it is from, this has become such a therapy episode. Maybe it'll work.
Is this a claymation podcast?
Well, I feel like I do have like maybe an exaggerated sense of how much of a threat it is to my survival that I'm unlikable, because I was like bullied for most of my childhood. So it really did feel like me being unlikable was just kind of a fact of reality. There's nothing I could do to combat it. So just like lie low. But like, I don't know now, because now it's like we do social media for a living. So it does feel like if you're really unlikable, it is like a threat to your survival. I don't know where the line, like it's so hard to find like the healthy middle with all of this stuff.
It's all a mess.
It's all.
There was a TikTok that I watched just before this. We're just only TikTokers now. He was like, what is the authentic self? I think by the time you're like 6 years old, like everything is so convoluted and you're just like this tornado of masks and reactions and it's hard to say like be your authentic self. It's like what even is that?
And then I like that we've been so obsessed with authenticity as a culture in recent years, which like I get it, there's a good aspect to that.
Yeah.
But then it's also hard because some people can be their authentic selves and it can be fine. And then some people, if they're not masking, it's going to be really detrimental to them. So it kind of, for me, can be almost like pain. And I'm not even experiencing like the worst of it by any means. Like there's obviously people with like full autism that have to mask in like really intense ways constantly. I can't even imagine how that must feel. Yeah, sometimes it can just feel like painful hearing people talk about authenticity, because it's like, well, number one, I don't even really believe there's like an authentic self. It's just kind of like we have like collections of tendencies and characteristics and
stories.
So I'm like, what feels like true is kind of just like you knowing where your own heart is. Like that's kind of something that I've been thinking about a lot, is only you can know the degree of empathy you feel towards someone else, or like only you can know whether your heart is in the right place or something. Only you can know the love that you feel for others, and that can maybe help you keep the shame at bay.
Yeah.
It can be hard to like interact in good faith in a world where like there a percentage of people aren't they are like actively taking things in bad faith.
Yeah, which has been a huge part of my anxiety and like trying to figure out my relationship with the internet. I'm like a pretty private person despite being online. Like I think just I've been off social media because I'm like I probably just need to be thinking about myself less. Thinking about like when people think about me less, and not processing every experience I have in the real world with how is this going to be perceived online? How is this going to be received online? Are people going to like this enough? Are they going to hate this? Are they going to make me think this way about me? Or I'm like, I just need to actually just be in the real world, actually touch some grass, go on a little hike. So
I'm really proud of you for the way you've been adopting healthier habits lately, getting offline, your hypnosis, you've been running again. Incredible.
See how long my knees can take it.
Shame just doesn't work as like a change-making tool, you know? Like it just doesn't. There are so many instances where like you can give constructive criticism in a way that isn't shame-based. And that I think there's a lot of situations in life, in real life and on the internet, where if you came at someone with constructive criticism, they would be able to hear it. But because it's being presented to them like dripping with shame, it's making them double down more. It blocks us from learning things, I think.
Okay, well, riddle me this. I'm feeling shame about everything that I've talked about already, about expressing my own shame about interfacing with the internet.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't want to be...
Like, have a victim mindset.
Yeah, or...
Like, we're fine.
Yeah.
We're fine. But we're all human. And it is true that we literally outlawed hanging people in the town square because we realized it was too cruel. And then the internet has almost like brought that back in a way. And the bodily experience can still be very similar. And like it's our deepest wiring that goes back forever to be constantly thinking about what other people think of us when we have downtime. And to just be generally thinking about it always, because our survival depends on our community. I think I have the perfect TikTok for us to segue into this.
And especially in like capitalism that has eroded so much of like traditional family and tribal community, that community can feel so like nebulous and ephemeral. Like you don't know if people will be in your life, or you can have friends just go away, and that's just the way it is, or it's just it's a lot.
Let's watch this TikTok. I think it's Michelle Obama, and I just thought it was a really good point. She's on the Jay Shetty podcast.
What is the best advice you've ever heard or received?
Come home, we like you here. The world won't always like you, but you can't count on the world to like you. You come home to be liked. You go out there to get your education, to earn a living. You won't necessarily find people who will see you or love you or like you you get that here.
No, it's sad that it's true because I wish we could, and it's not fully true. There's always going to be like angels in the outside world too, but I found that really helpful to think of it that way, because it's like, it is, I mean, if you've set up your life well, yeah, you have your people and they like you and they know you, and the further away people get from you, the less they know you, and that's okay. And you're projecting onto other people constantly too, and like there's look like how quickly I believed that Reagan was just like some narcissist who stepped on other breakdancers' toes. I was just easily willing to believe that as soon as I heard it. But do your breakdancing at home. They like your breakdancing at home.
Yeah.
The Olympics.
Not so much.
The thing I just keep thinking is like 95% of the time, doing literally anything is going to be better than being on your phone.
Yeah.
95% of the time, that's like true.
It has, like, it's made a difference for sure, being off social media.
Don't you have an Alok video for us? I feel like Alok is one of my favorite thinkers in the way that they talk about shame.
Yeah, we're so lucky.
Is this a shame-based one or just a...
We'll find, I think this is like a not knowing.
It just like amazes me that Alok is able to like be, like to bear the brunt of so much unfair criticism and abuse, and to just show up in the world with such like a powerful love.
Yeah.
That is like, you wouldn't blame them if they didn't show up that way. It would be fine if they, but it just, yeah, like you said, just feels like a gift, and like we just get to like consume their content for free.
I'm always impressed when I see their interactions, like back when I was on social media. Because like, you know, I try to practice what I preach, but I'm not always like coming at like conversations with the most just like loving, ubiquitous energy.
That's salty.
Yeah, I do.
People like, one of our recent videos, people were like, Tanner is so salty in this video and I'm here for it. And that's another thing I feel like I've been thinking lately is like, everything isn't for everyone all the time. And I feel like we really struggle with that. We need something to just be all-encompassing good for everyone. Otherwise, we just want to shit on it. But it's like you being salty in that video, there could be someone who's watching that, and that's just not the energy they need to be like exposed to in that moment, because it's kind of hurting them. And then there are people to where it's like, it's so healing to just have you be salty without like moderating yourself. And yeah, and like both of those things are equally valid. It doesn't make you being salty bad or good. It just, that's what you were that day.
Well, Alok has, to my knowledge, been pretty consistent. Maybe they got it all out when they were young or something, and now they've just reached sainthood. But
they do feel like a saint about time.
The patron saint of my heart. They'll just like, someone will say like the most egregious thing, and they'll just be like, I'm sorry you were conditioned to react this way to people who are different than you. Just know that I love you so much. I'm like,
I do think that's what we should all be striving for, because it is true. Like, I really do agree that like love and truth are inseparable. And I feel like they're able to bring that energy to a comment like that, even when like it would be so understandable for them to be like so offended and hurt and angry, because they really internalize the truth that like, yeah, like we're all victims of harmful beliefs and systems, and it's poisoned a lot of our minds.
Shame. Because that's what they're constantly identifying. It's like, oh, that person is triggered by their own shame, by somebody in their early life who shamed them and taught them that it was shameful to be different than this standard expectation for human behavior or conformity.
We're definitely the most enraged when we see people unapologetically playing out the parts of ourselves that we're like most resistant to. Like, someone could do a bad thing that I'm never inclined to do, so I could be like, that's really shitty, but it doesn't necessarily like trigger me in a personal way. But then if I see someone doing something that is closer to something I really am like prone to doing myself, I'm much more likely to be harsh to them about it. That's what you're like.
What's so gracious and wonderful and powerful about saying we don't know is that inscribed in the DNA of that sentence is, can you help me figure it out? Why would we want to be absolute? Why would we want to be perfect? Those are all other synonyms for loneliness. Because if we knew everything, then we wouldn't need each other. What's pretty gnarly about not knowing is we get to ask questions. And what's pretty cool about a question is it's an invitation to community.
Perfectly said.
I feel like even though we've been talking about shame and things, there is a relationship, because as we were talking about before, like how that plays into our sense of belonging in community in the world, and how that insistence that we know how things are, how we are, is like a really egoic approach to the world, causes us to double down, to put up defenses.
And it's so easy to, I've noticed this myself so much over the years. I think it's a human tendency where we have this bar for morality that we see ourselves as like having reached. And then anyone who like doesn't meet that, anyone who's like under us, we're judgmental of, even if it's a mistake we would have made a year ago, or even if it's like the same degree of harm that we might commit, but it's just a different flavor. We're so quick to be like judgmental of other people's mistakes, and I just feel like the less grace we give others, the less grace we give ourselves, and the more I just like continue living my life as an adult and realizing that even if you're approaching life with a good heart, with good intentions, you're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I think the more you realize that you're not immune to making mistakes, no matter how like pure your heart is, or
You'll hurt people, you'll offend people, you'll do things.
Yeah, I think that gives you more and more grit. Like there's such a lack of humility in just like raging at other people, when I mean like Jesus is like was right about the let use without sin cast the first stone. It's not to say that we have to like pretend everything's great and fine and never criticize people and but it's just like, I don't know, I do just think the grace you're giving yourself is the grace you give others. And it is so radical to decouple the idea of progress from shame, because we really do feel like shame. We have a whole other video on shame, but
it's easy to see as like community has been so defined by like brutality, and in-group acceptance has been based on that for so long. It's like there's a pecking order, and maybe we feel like less vulnerable to being ousted by the community if we can find someone who's more oustable than us. So when we, someone online's being foolish and we're like, you fucking idiot.
I do think that's what it is.
It's like, well, it's because I'm reinforcing my idea of myself as like worthy, intelligent, sociable and all that.
It's like a traumatized juvenile form of self-worth to be just finding people that you think are more oustable than you. You get like a little illusion of self-worth in that, of like, well, at least I didn't do that. Or even, there's kind of this idea of like, well, I went through this thing just like that person and I didn't do that bad thing. And it's like, yeah, but we don't all have access to the exact same like resources, knowledge. Who knows how our brains are just like genetically different in like what's possible for us. I just really think we have to bring more of a like, we don't know, like we can call out things that we feel are like unhelpful or harmful without taking it to that place of shame. Yeah. And I really want to be better about it. I feel like we have been getting better, and like when we started our YouTube channel, I feel like I was very shame based in like how I would talk about stuff. And I guess like growing up makes you soften potentially, but I feel like there's a lot of room to progress. And like we all benefit individually as well as collectively when we do that. Like it's a gift we give ourselves and others.
Yeah, I mean, shame is a poison, and it like stays in the body and literally does disrupt our organs, our nervous system. Like I've been listening to a lot of health and wellness, various doctors of various sorts and psychologists and so on, and like that's pretty much what all of them were saying. Like the one I was listening to today on 10% Happier podcast, Peter Levine was talking about treating somebody in like a war zone, and you have these two people on two different sides who like hated each other, who are both trying to deal with their trauma and both kind of reaching this realization of like, oh, like it starts, like peace begins in my own body, and I can't offer you peace until I've like accessed it for myself.
Yeah, most of our parents weren't at peace and couldn't give us peace. And it's really cool that we're in a time where this stuff is being talked about in a genuinely helpful way. Yeah. And that we have thinkers like Alok who are somewhat mainstream and that we can listen to. It's coming up more and more, and I hope it'll be an ongoing positive snowball effect.
Another great one, I was watching ContraPoints did one on cringe.
Yeah, I love that video.
Again, talking about like communities of the internet and the public spectacle and all that. It's good to see those messages.
If you haven't watched the ContraPoints video essay on cringe, it's so good.
I'm like going back and catching up on all the ones that I didn't see before.
She's never done a video that isn't the best video I've ever seen. Like, genuinely, I think she's like the best YouTuber.
She's really good. Next one.
I have a Mormon themed one. This is more of just a light, funny one.
I served a Mormon mission. I grew up Mormon. As missionaries, every day we go door to door and we would ask people, can we teach you about our religion? And believe it or not, most people say no. And what we would do as like a Hail Mary when people turned us down is offer to sing them a hymn. In hindsight, offering to sing a cappella for someone who has just rejected speaking normally to you is pretty bizarre. Imagine if a salesman came to my house and he said, hey, do you need pest control? And I was like, no, I'm good. No, thank you. And he was like, well, can I sing something? The itsy bitsy spider crawled up the wall.
Is it a sister missionary thing to offer to sing a hymn?
We were encouraged to do
You
that.
were?
Yeah.
Wow. So it's not just mission specific. It's...
Yeah, I don't know if that's like coming from the top, but I think it's fairly common. We're somewhat common.
I'm like, unless you are an a cappella singer, I just don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's going to lead to anything good. It's kind of trying to bring Christmas caroling into sort of the year round.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard even just at Christmas, I think. As a phenomenon, we all struggle with it. Just being sung to a cappella on your doorstep.
Yeah. I'm not looking.
So tough.
Not looking for that so much.
Anyway, she's my favorite.
What's her name?
Local comic right now. Elena Hershey. I'm on mutuals with her now on Instagram. Oh,
How's her Instagram doing?
how's our Instagram doing?
Yeah.
It's doing good.
Nice.
It's doing well. We're keeping it going. Also, just really random while we're here and talking about Mormonism, if you haven't re-followed the new Girls Camp podcast Instagram yet, you should, because Haley got her account taken down by presumably Mormons reporting her for hate speech, and she still has like tens of thousands of followers to like get back from having her account taken down and having to make a new one. So
Speaking of criticizing institutions and systems over individual people,
is this where I get to shit on Get Out Games? Anyway,
I think that we're getting there. I was just thinking about, like what we were talking about earlier, the complexity of genetics and upbringing and, life, how varied the human experience is person to person, and how we really don't know what it's like to be in another's head, and people can't always be fully held accountable for their actions. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like some people don't have the hardware to act in the same way. And this isn't just like a moral things, even just like in socially acceptable ways, or it's such a mixed bag, and it sucks that Christianity and perhaps other religions as well gave us such like hard and fast rules about behavior and kind of created this illusion that everyone's on this equal playing field.
Yeah.
And we all just decide to be good
same
people or bad people.
We're just
And we
in every
judge.
moment being like, should I choose good or should I choose evil?
Yeah. And it's really not like that at all.
Yeah. You know how people will say, this is like the reason why this person did that harmful thing, but there's no excuse. And I'm like, I get the sentiment behind that of like, that doesn't make the harm okay. Like that, I agree with that, right?
Yeah.
I also feel like sometimes when that's used, it's almost like, yeah, there's this, because there's a reason everything happens, right? Like anyone who does anything harmful, there's a reason they do it. It's not just the sitting there and being like, should I choose good or should I choose evil?
Yeah.
It's almost like we're resistant to even like hearing the explanations because we feel like it will somehow minimize the harm. But it's helpful to know the reasons that harmful things happen, because then you're more equipped to like make them less likely to happen again, because you actually understand the root problem. Well, the life I've lived, at least, it's like just the dominant thinking everywhere I go is just that we can shame ourselves into being good. Mm-hmm. And that we can shame others into being good. And yeah, it is just that idea that like shame is the thing holding everything together.
Because yeah, it's the like shame is sort of the rhetoric of violence culture, violence oriented culture, like which is what America is, which is what the like civilization has been since the beginning, something that we're hopefully overcoming. That's like, yep, we own anything we want and we'll fight you and kill you for it, and we're the chosen people and we get to do what we want, and if you have a problem with that, well, it's because you're evil and bad and deserve to die. And that's kind of been the basic governing system of humanity the last few thousand years. And shame is just the rhetoric part of that. It's
shame is a control mechanism of the people that actually have power. We live in a late capitalist hellscape where most of us were really traumatized as children and many people's needs aren't met and blah, 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 blah. But there's no excuse for doing that. And I'm like, again, get the sentiment of like, the harm is bad no matter what. But I'm like, there is plenty of reasons why people are like not acting right. There are plenty of reasons why they have horrendous ideas about like we are all victims of the systems we are raised in. Like there's only so, you can do the work to try and like get away from them in your mind where you can, but it's like you can do all the awakening in the world and we still live under capitalism.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
Yeah. And again, it's not to say that we can't have like standards of behavior.
Yeah.
But just shaming someone makes you unable to identify the root problem. And if you can't identify the root problem, you're not going to be able to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a way of like pushing it away and condemning it without having the ability to fix it. And granted, we don't always have the ability to fix it. There's a lot going on, even in, people's brains and DNA and things that we just like, we're like, yep, that really sucks. Like someone who's like born a psychopath, like what do we do about that? I don't know.
And honestly, to like unshame shame, I sort of feel like
we've come full circle. We're shaming now as an act of radical de-shaming.
But I do think it's so scary to reckon with how powerless we are to changing certain things, or like, the feeling of powerlessness is so scary. But I almost understand why people cling to their shame and like delude themselves into thinking it might be an effective change maker, because it's really scary to confront the fact that like, no, there's a giant system that's so much bigger than we can even fathom driving things here. Yeah. And like, we are just one tiny person. Like that's really scary to reckon with. So I can understand why it's like the quote about how we cling to our hate, because when that's gone, there's just sadness. Like having to just accept what is sad. It's like when you're going through a breakup, it's usually it's normal or it's understandable why people will have a phase of hating the other person because they're not yet ready to sit with the grief of the loss, because that's more painful. And anger is like can like delay that. Like it's all understandable. It's just hard. It's hard to just like live among all of it.
It's hard to be a human.
It is.
I'm going to say it. I know no one's ever thought that before, but being a human's kind of fucked up.
Yeah. Especially in like environments where it's not meeting your needs the way an environment like naturally could or should.
And, it's easy to say all y'all shamers out there need to knock it off. But ultimately what it comes down to is like me interacting with my own shame, trying to, disarm my own shame, and that will hopefully trickle out in the way that I treat other people.
Like, again, the thing is like forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Forgiveness not through the lens of excusing harm or giving the okay to certain behavior that is bad and harmful. Mm-hmm. But it's like when I'm able to just see that everyone is the product of their genetics and experiences, I'm calmer within myself, and then I'm able to like think more rationally about like if it is a situation where I can have like do anything about it. Sometimes it's not, and you just have to soothe yourself and not take it on. Oh, I have to tell you about my escape room experience last night.
Oh yeah.
As you know,
I can't believe you went to an escape room.
It's been I've avoided escape rooms for as long as I've known they existed. I've been like, that's not for me.
Like already escaped, don't need to.
Yes, I joined an escape to cult. I've done enough. I will not. And also just the group project of it all with escape room stuff. No, not for me. Don't have what it takes. But Jared's family was going to an escape room last night, and I was like, Sam, it's time to face your fears and do an escape room. This will be good for you. I love a novel experience. Novelty is good for the brain. So we went to this escape room, and we were assigned to do like the Egyptian mummy escape room. And the thing about the Egyptian mummy escape room is that you're in total darkness the whole time, and except you all have like a little electrical candle. So it's like there's barely any light, and you're having to like decode this language and do all this stuff that like does require good vision. So you have to work together as a team. But in this room where one of the fundamental parts of the experience was being plunged into total darkness, the air conditioning at Get Out Games was broken yesterday. So for most of the experience, we had to have the door leading out into the very well-lit hallway ajar for just like the whole thing, which kind of killed the vibe for me a little bit.
Yeah.
Second thing was,
Guys, the door's right there. We could escape that way.
it's weird. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm
When God closes an Egyptian tomb, he opens up a door.
they even said to us before, they were like, really try and get into character for this. And
Who is your character?
I mean, I was just trying to like do bits the whole time, but I felt like everyone else was taking it quite seriously. Tana, I was genuinely nonverbal and fully like powered down within the first 15 minutes. There was like this language you were supposed to try and like decipher. And I had a friend say to me,
You're just Joseph Smithing.
Yeah,
Rosetta
you
Stone,
literally are.
whatever.
I was like, where's the sister? Why are we doing it this way? And this was the most traumatizing part, the whole reason I'm even telling this story. Part of the Egyptian mummy escape room, to escape the room, religious chanting, group religious chanting. So basically you had to find these 5 like statues of gods, and then you had to like crack the code of where each of them needs to be placed in the room. You have to then go up to, you have to like place the statue, and then you all have to, and it said, scream at the top of your lungs. I can't remember the exact thing, but it was like, oh God, we have placed the Anubis statue on the left, right wall. Please hear our... Like, it was like, you had to do a religious chant to get out of the escape room. So I was obviously immediately triggered. I couldn't do group chanting before Mormonism. I certainly can't do it now.
Wow, especially in an escape room that's Egyptian themed.
Can you imagine a worse escape room concept for me personally than
I can't, actually.
group chanting to escape?
I cannot.
It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
But you survived.
But I survived, yeah.
Do you feel stronger because of the experience?
No, and also we like definitely failed in the time limit, but they like let us go over, and like we're a bit loosey-goosey on the clues towards the end, so I'm just like, there's no integrity in this experience.
Isis and Anubis didn't strike you.
Isis was one of the names of it.
So Isis was a real one.
Yeah.
Wow, that would have been terrifying for me. As a kid, my biggest fear was Egyptian cults.
Really? Oh.
Egyptian specifically, because I saw the young Sherlock Holmes movie at too young of an age, and it freaked me out. Imagine my chagrin when I showed up to the temple.
Yeah.
They had, taken a lot of the Egyptian, not so Egyptian focused, thank God. Wow, so were you like a British archaeologist?
No, I was nonverbal.
That was your character?
I was timeless, formless. It was an ego death experience, really. Kind of a spiritually empowering in a certain sense, but also just really brought me to the dust.
Right.
Also, everyone was like so abreast of all the clues, and everyone just seemed so on top of it. And I was just like, I don't even know how to contribute. Like, can someone assign me something to do? I didn't want to be assigned something to do, obviously. But yeah, it really is like everything that's bad about group project and
Puzzles.
the Mormon temple and puzzle solving. All the bad aspects of those things combined.
Not interested. I'm not interested in an escape room.
Yeah, so that's that.
Well, glad you made it out.
Thank you.
Glad you survived, lived to tell the tale, and are stronger for it.
Yeah.
You can escape anything now.
I guess.
Escapist mentality. Well, how's everyone escaping these days? What are you escaping from?
Yeah, sound off in the comments about what you're escaping from and how, and advice, please.
Is it watching this video? Is it...
Well, I suppose we should probably escape to Mormon Narnia. We're escaping through the portal. You guys can come with us?
Need to escape the advancing Lamanites. They're out to get us.
Yeah, they are. Well, or we're out to get them. I can't remember.
Hard to know.
Really hard to pin it down.
Making me question everything about Mesoamerican colonialism.
This has been a bit of a weird video, but I had a nice time.
Oh, TikTok always feels so good for me.
So good for the soul.
What's any weird ones on your algorithm? What's your algorithm showing you? Just curious.
It's kind of slim pickings right now. Nice. I need it to show me more comedy and less mental health stuff.
Keep showing me aliens. It wants me to believe in aliens. I think it might just be China trying to disintegrate my sense of normalcy and reality and dependence on Western culture. Do you believe in aliens? Sound off in the comments.
And we will see you next week with another smash hit of a video. And thanks, you senses love.
Okay, love you.
Love you.